Hello, and welcome to RRI Explained, a ResBIOS podcast. It is the aim of the ResBIOS project to embed responsible research and innovation, or RRI, into 4 universities across Europe, in the hope of improving the interconnectivity between science research and society, with a particular focus on the biosciences. But what is RRI exactly? Well, hopefully we can find out together.
Today we are joined by Carla Perucca Iannitelli from the StepChange project as we talk about the benefits of citizen science and how citizen science can be used, not just to engage with citizens, but to engage with stakeholders. Thank you for joining us today, Carla.
Thank you, Christopher, for having me. It's a real pleasure.
So you're one of the partners that I was working on the StepChange project, which is coming up to just over a year since it started. I was just wondering if you could tell our audience a little bit of an introduction of StepChange and the key aims of the project.
Yes, absolutely. Well, StepChange is a Horizon 2020 project, which is currently implementing 5 citizen science initiatives in the fields of health, energy, and environment. The initiatives tackle the issues of wildlife conservation in Slovenia, on the other hand, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease in the UK, energy communities in Germany, infectious disease outbreak preparedness in Italy, and finally, off-grid renewable energy in agriculture in Uganda. So the project started last year and draws on the expertise of 11 partners from 7 European countries and Uganda. And what is relevant is that StepChange builds on the assumption that citizen science can play an even broader societal and scientific role that is generally acknowledged. The overall objective of the project is to explore the potential of citizen science and to formulate recommendations and instruments for better cementing this approach within research and innovation institutions, as well as changing researchers' and society's mindset on its value.
So it's a pretty broad set of research areas that the StepChange project is approaching. Can you talk a bit about kind of the benefits that kind of having these broad area of expertise has, and why including kind of a diverse group of stakeholders is beneficial when it comes to citizen-led research and in general RRI, but also, well, within the framework of citizen science?
Mm-hmm. Indeed, citizen-led research can be understood as a strategy to increase the quality and interactions between science and society, and it aims to achieve a better alignment of research and innovation with the culture, needs, challenges, and expectations of our societies. To me, it's a powerful tool to work at the local level with communities and tackle the most prevalent challenges faced by European regions. At a research level, on the other hand, this kind of projects has the potential to activate processes that can have an impact in several dimensions of the responsible research and innovation framework. For instance, we have public engagement together with the quadruple helix of stakeholders. On the other hand, we have open access, making science accessible, free of charge, and without restrictions. To me, it's also important to shift our traditional way of doing science into an open, fair, and inclusive one. On the other hand, we have ethics, which is connected with the 10 principles of citizen science developed by EXA, the European Citizen Science Association. We also have science education that boosts our formal and informal education through training and participation in science, increasing scientific literacy of the population and critical thinking, and of course, fostering STEM careers. On the other hand, as well, we have the gender dimension, which is promoting gender balance in research and innovation and the inclusion of sex and gender aspects in all participatory activities of any project. And last but not least, we have governance, which is fostering the connection with decision makers for the official uptake of citizens-generated data and to inform evidence-based policies. So to me, those kind of projects generally An ideal means to democratize science, build trust in science, and leverage the best societal intelligence to conduct excellent research and innovation. But someone can ask, but how to put this into practice? Responsible research and innovation means, to me, among other things, to include all parties involved to develop responsible innovation regarding the society as a whole. And to consider something responsible has to be responsible with and for everybody, and as directly would do every person think, and stop assuming on behalf of other stakeholders. Something that, if you may ask me, happens a lot, especially with communities that we are not part of. And it's a way to encourage and trust that everyone is able to speak for themselves. And well, when it comes to stakeholder engagement, it's key to ensure the diversity of the group. There are uncountable benefits intertwined with the agency of diverse groups that are not limited to citizen science. I do believe inclusive groups tend to be more productive and they perform better, therefore. Diverse stakeholders can add much value and develop new approaches despite having different perspectives, different knowledges. They all contribute to the same goals in your project. And citizens participating in science, we need to recognize that have been traditionally part of the upper literacy groups. And if we want to break that down and be really diverse, we should be able to recognize the stakeholders in each specific location. The key to be inclusive and involve disadvantaged populations is to select research questions that matter to them. It's important to consider how to motivate and sustain interest in the projects. And for doing that, continuous feedback is paramount for me. Also, you can use the results of your project, for instance, as a way to engage with wider civil society that can eventually become active participants in your project. Also, your results can also be taken by society or other stakeholder groups for advocacy purposes. And well, in relation to participation, it's also important to mention that you have many levels, from occasional contributions to deep engagement in all phases of the research or just in a particular one. Different people with different life experiences, responsibilities, and interests can contribute and add value to different phases of your projects. And projects and your teams, we need to be flexible. I mean, people's lives change even from one day to another. So flexibility is a key, and not all target groups as well may be involved at the same level. So the desired level of participation will mainly depend on the project objectives, but will be strongly limited by the human resources capabilities and, of course, budget of the research team.
So that's really interesting. You talk about kind of how citizen engagement is important, obviously for bridging gaps between researchers and society, but also engaging with stakeholders. But a lot of the time when people think of citizen science, it's engaging with society, getting them involved with either experimental design or data collection. But a lot less is talked about how citizen science can be used to engage other societal actors and other stakeholders. So I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how citizen science as an approach can better engage with these other stakeholders, perhaps.
True. Well, I think citizen science ecosystem has already identified the benefits of this field in policy and business sectors and has highlighted them to policymakers at local, regional, national, European, and even international levels. It's worth mentioning that some EU member states have already developed citizen science strategies to support national practices, since citizen science is also a key element to tackle local and regional challenges. But nonetheless, the overall benefits of citizen science remain largely unknown for most policymakers and the business sector at all levels. Perhaps more programs, training, capacity building, or networking events showcasing real-life projects with high impact are needed to build trust among scientists, societies, the industrial sector, and the scientific community to see the whole potential. Making a difference to science and producing an impact at the economic local level, are key motivations for policymakers and citizens, especially if policymakers want to materialize, to make it real, the benefits of citizen science, including economic impact, social cohesion, and of course, democratization of policy decisions. And then citizen science must be taken more seriously and work together to promote common goals. And in doing that, setting up collaborations among citizens, policymakers, and the private sector will require a certain level of trust. And for instance, where this level of trust between mostly society and policymakers does not exist or is low, the private sector can play a key role. Their involvement can also contribute to the sustainability, which is a really important element of the citizen science projects, by creating new business models that further support their activities. Of course, nobody said it was easy to implement a citizen science project. Indeed, citizen science is a challenging endeavor, and it poses difficulties within all phases of its implementation, from, let's say, project design to stakeholder engagement, data collection and analysis, as well as its outcomes and results. And of course, sustainability, as we mentioned before. For instance, engaging citizens poses a series of big challenges, such as, how do we engage citizens, including all social realities, and therefore, how can we be more inclusive? Which key motivation mechanisms can we use to ensure citizens will gather data in the data collection process? Or how ethical is to use the rewarding mechanism to engage citizen scientists? And last but not least, how do we ensure the data collected is not biased? And all these questions, I think it's because citizen science is still an innovative field of knowledge that needs further recognition within society, policymakers, and the business sector. And of course, the traditional scientific community as well. Besides, those projects needs to be tailor-made, and it grows step by step as you go along its implementation. So to me, it's an extra challenge. For instance, when mapping the stakeholders, you can find a new key actor which can enrich and enlarge your research objectives and outcomes. And thus, you may need new engagement strategies and mechanisms to be set in place. And all these changes also needs to be taken into account and be more flexible.
So it seems that with citizen science, kind of the boots on the ground kind of getting citizens involved and bridging that gap kind of builds that trust that you mentioned before within general public and general society and researchers. But I suppose the engagement with other stakeholders and industrial leads as part of this quadruple helix kind of principles is a good way of cementing these ideals and the results from the citizen science projects into policy and into, providing the scaffolding for longer term and more sustainable kind of outcomes, I suppose. Do you think that's sort of correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. That's precisely one of the most relevant aspects to me of citizen science, because you need to have a clear and real picture of the field that you're working on. Of course, it depends on your study, but in the designing stage of the research, you will find many things that it's almost impossible for you to know beforehand. And that's why citizen science works well, because it's an interdisciplinary welcoming space. I think that's the beauty of citizen science, to stop assuming that you know things that you don't have to know, And really, there is no way for you to know. So we need to locate, collaborate, and engage with. It's important to build the research stages with those who can paint, the let's say the real picture, and layer all the knowledge and interests together. If not, the work won't have as much as power and accuracy as it could do.
Can you describe exactly how Science for Change is involved with StepChange and how you're facilitating these citizen science initiatives?
We are horizontal partners. Science for Change is leading the work. Well, it led the work on the scoping process, focusing notably on ensuring citizen scientist recruitment for each citizen science initiative, as well as establishing institutional arrangements and other accomplishments for their implementation. So to increase the sustainability of the initiative since the very beginning. And among other things, we have developed some tools useful for the initiatives. For instance, a protocol for creating citizen science, some spreadsheets to track the involvement of different stakeholders, which was particularly useful to plan beforehand some strategies to overcome if any stakeholder was reluctant to participate, and also some checklists for legal and ethical issues.
So you provide quite a lot of the scaffolding for other delivery partners within StepChange to help them conduct.
Yeah,
well, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Some materials to facilitate the involvement of citizens and other stakeholders, as well as some trainings. Yeah.
So you've talked in communications we've had before this actual interview, you talk about extreme citizen science. What exactly is extreme citizen science? It sounds very exciting.
I'm not sure about the exact definition of extreme citizen science. What I know, it's like, because in the face of a large and complex societal challenges, it's important to combine knowledge and energies of various kinds and sources and stakeholders. So the extreme citizen science, it's a framework and a tool that includes the four helix, which are citizens, policymakers, industries, and the academia. Also, what gives the extreme citizen science is that it helps you to develop a citizen science project with all those stakeholders in all the phases of the projects. You can work by reformulating your research question to data collection, which is the most typical phase that you involve citizens, but as well in your dissemination and your communication. And also it's important to listen and to actively hear the stakeholders involved in your project. There are many examples in citizen science that the research team started with an idea, and then citizens get really excited and motivated to work even further. So we're the main citizens proposing other new ideas to the research team. And at the end, it went well because the project expanded, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's the beauty of extreme citizen science.
No, it sounds very exciting. Like just sort of adding extreme to anything just sort of adds a je ne sais quoi to it, I suppose.
Also, in a context, Moodle learning process in citizen science is crucial as a response to need to capitalize on existing knowledge. And if we want to really address those complex problems that we face nowadays, a local but even a global scale, we need to other ways of doing science.
So you've mentioned that StepChange, it's a relatively new project. You're coming up to just about a year of the first year of the project. What has been the main what have you been doing within the first year, and what are the next steps? And has there been many challenges or opportunities that, you might have been surprised about, or stuff that you're kind of proud to talk about?
The first year, it was pretty difficult due to this pandemic, and we couldn't meet in person yet. That makes things more difficult. However, we based the ground to support the citizen science experiences inside StepChange. And now they are focusing more on the recruitment of citizen science, which they are pretty successful, I should say. And on the other hand, the horizontal partners, the ones that we are supporting the initiatives, we are working on creating Moodle learning spaces. I think Moodle responsiveness of science and to society, it's relevant, as well as to boost, the scientific investigations in those totally different fields. But at the end, if you create those spaces, you will see that there are a lot of tools and a lot of methodologies that can be used horizontally, transversally. And that's important for citizen science initiatives.
You've spoken a little bit about the Moodle learning space. Is this going to be like an online toolkit is this for your partners to use and as resources for the project, or is this going to be widely available for other citizen science initiatives in the future as part of your sustainability?
We are going to use the U Citizen Science platform. I think this is an amazing tool that we have, which is open, accessible, and really easy to use for everyone. You don't need to be a researcher to use the tool. And we are also trying to collaborate with the platform. So we are going to create a space in the forum that is already there. Based on each specific thematic on StepChange. So in there, we're gonna post some questions or some challenges that we are currently facing, and other projects may intervene, may help us. And the idea is to create a space, a quick space that you can respond easily without expecting a private message. In order to tackle common challenges that each citizen science project can have. And the main tool that we are going to use is the U Citizen Science, as I told you. I think that's the tool that also we need to boost.
No, it sounds very interesting, and I like the idea of this transdisciplinary sort of approach to it, where you are working with other citizen science projects to try and make it a more well-rounded tool. Just, of course, obviously, StepChange obviously has a lot of scope for lots of different sorts of citizen science projects, obviously with healthcare and with conservation and energy, of course. But yeah, just having this kind of collaborative sort of framework for adding content to the platform seems like a really fruitful way of having a toolkit that is more useful for more people.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think it's a matter of not reinventing the wheel again and again. Citizen science can significantly contribute to a proper exchange of information. That's something that we can do in the U Citizen Science platform to solve some specific problems, but also more broader problems that we all face in those projects. We can also provide capacity and quality of our findings and responses.
So how far through the development of the toolkit are you at the moment? Do you have a sort of idea of a launch date for that, or is that still in the pipeline somewhere?
We're still working on that because we want to create a forum. I mean, the U Citizens platform is already there. The forum is already created, and it's currently being done by the European Citizen Science Association, which is doing an amazing work in that sense. But specifically, we're working on that Moodle space right now. So it's not ready yet. It will be ready soon. That, of course.
Oh, very exciting. And yeah, we'll let us know and we'll share. Yeah. I was just wondering if there's anything else you wanted to add about the StepChange project, anything you want to mention about the initiatives or the work of any of our partners, or if there's anything else you wanted to add.
Just stay tuned because good news are coming, and we will be in touch, of course. Just follow us on our social media.
We'll add some plugs to that. To be honest, that's my last question. So unless, again, you've kind of mentioned a little bit that, some big news is coming up, which you're keeping your cards close to your chest a little bit. But unless there's anything else unless you think that we've missed anything, or if there's anything else you wanted to.
I just wanted to say that thank you for having me here. It was a really good discussion, and we need also more spaces as this one in exchanging some perspectives and experiences as well. So thank you for that.
Well, no, thank you for joining us. I think originally the idea of this podcast was to, explain some of the aspects of RRI to more general publics, but now it's become a bit more of a platform for other projects just to sort of reach out and talk about the work they're doing. And
that's amazing.
That's
amazing.
Again, thank you very much for joining us, Carla.
The ResBIOS project is funded by the EU with the grant number 872146. To learn more about the ResBIOS project and the other pillars of RRI, please go to resbios.eu. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.